Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Soul, and I got a very special guest with me. I got Ambling Soul Cheryl over there. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Today we're gonna be reviewing the Marvels. Higher, further, faster, baby.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. We're gonna go a little bit into our non-spoiler thoughts first because we want you guys to still watch some of this video if you haven't seen the movie yet. But after the non spoiler, take a pause on the video, go watch the movie, come back, give us another view because we love you out there. But Cheryl, your non spoiler thoughts.
I will let you know they are all over the place. I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was a fun time. I do have some thoughts about what people are saying about the movie, some of the commentary and how people are coming out of the theaters, whether they like it or don't like it, and where the MCU may be going from here out.
Well, I'll give some of my non spoiler thoughts here. I also really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. If you liked the Disney Plus show Miss Marvel, I think you're going to love this movie because Kamala Khan and her family, the Khan family, are still just as charming, just as fun as in that show. I really enjoyed the bonding moments that you had with Kamala, Carol, and Monica. Iman Vellani was having the time of her life, and you could tell on screen she probably was doing the best job for me, or at least was having the most fun, and therefore it was coming out just in her performance. She knew what her character needed of her. I didn't like the villain too much, but it didn't detract too much from the movie for me. Another bad Marvel villain, we've been here before. The Nick Fury, I enjoyed him. Did Secret Invasion not happen? Because like his character is like, oh, you're acting like nothing happened to you. You didn't have your best friend die or anything, or
I
spoilers.
mean,
Just
it's the
it was
MCU. Nobody truly dies, right? Maybe people come
right.
back, maybe it's not real, who knows?
The movie was a little fast paced at times, and that could make it a little messy here and there. At the most part, I think maybe because so many people were criticizing the movie, I went in with lower expectations and came out going, that was a lot of fun.
We will have different perspectives, and I think we're gonna like and dislike different parts or have different points to hit on because I have fallen off of the Marvel shows and even some of
Mm.
the movies. So I did not see Miss Marvel. There we go. So I have fallen off of those, or maybe I saw one episode, meant to binge watch it, and just got busy with life and haven't caught up. So this was kind of my first introduction. Went into this a little bit blind, but I still had a lot of fun. And maybe not the opposite thoughts of what you're talking about with things related to the villain, because I don't know if the villain we see on screen is really the villain they're trying to impart here on the MCU.
Mm.
One of the thoughts I came out of the theater with is I could see there was an intent to show where one person is a hero to one society,
Yeah.
and then on the other side, they are completely the annihilator, the villain for another society. And it's a flip side of the coin. And how do you, as a human being, take that in, live with the consequences of your actions? You may have saved your friend, saved your planet, saved your world, but in the process of doing so, you may have completely destroyed something else. To me, it was kind of that concept might be a theme through the next phase of the MCU, something to revisit. But rather than the actual villain who was on screen, I think they were trying to go with something a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know if they quite achieved what they were going for.
Well, let's go straight to spoiler alert here so we can get into it, because me not liking the villain was more for acting choices than it
Okay.
was for her motivation, because I actually
Mhm.
liked her motivation
Yes,
in the
agreed.
movie. But her acting choices, the way that she was either directed or either it was her choice, became a little mustache twirling villain for me, where
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know if you're in the same movie as everyone else. We learned the reason why Carol hasn't spent any significant time on Earth and after the first Captain Marvel movie, and that's because she went back to Hala, I'm guessing immediately, because they said 30 years, And I'm like, okay, that's kind of like immediately after 1995, the events of the first movie, going back to Hala, destroying the supreme intelligence, and therefore that destroys the government. And no wonder a civil war happens, and that destroys the resources of this planet. When that civil war happens, no air, no water, sun is dying. So the villain, who's named Darben, in a bad way, is just trying to save her planet. Thoughts on Carol Danvers destroying the Supreme Intelligence and creating the problem initially, and Darben's motivation for both revenge and to save her planet?
Again, I understood some of the intent of where they were going, and I was along for the ride, and so I was enjoying it when I was in the film. But one of the things I think they were lacking is trying to show the consequences of Carol Danvers' actions as Captain
Mm,
Marvel. And you see that impact on the people she left behind on Earth. You see the impact of, Talos and his refugee group having to, go around the galaxy. You have Nick Fury and whatever he's been doing the many years with Shield, and of course the ultimate destruction and chaos and civil war of the planet, where she destroyed what you call it,
the Supreme Intelligence.
Supreme Intelligence. There we go. I can get names right. What we don't explicitly see, and I wish they had dove into a lot further, is Carol Danvers, the impact to her. It's all implied. You were
Mm,
lonely. You're trying to fix your mistakes. You're going around the galaxy trying to save people. And it just seems like their attempt to do this was kind of like emotionless or not really there, has a hard time connecting to people, but you don't really see the devastation in her emotions and in her actions. It's just kind of wooden on screen. And I really wish they
yeah.
had dove into it a little further to really show how it impacted her.
And that could be another reason, now that you said that, that I didn't like the villain, because you saw all the emotion in Darben, even to a point that was like, okay, I need you to dial it back a little. And you weren't really getting any of that emotion from Carol Danvers, except for maybe a little part here and there. So she was more of that stoic Captain
Mhm.
Marvel,
Yeah.
instead of showing the times when she is feeling insecure or making the decisions that she was making. We don't really get the bird's eye view of that. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and there's little glimmers of it, like when they do the flashbacks and she's talking to Monica's mom or even her as a little girl. But like when those flashbacks happen, I'm like, okay, let's go deeper. Let's explore
Mm,
this a little bit more. And then they would always pull it back to the present day and emotion shut down and like let's keep with the actual story. Is this the story, a continuation, a part two of Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel? Or is this story about something else? And in my
yeah.
opinion, and why I liked it, and I can see from the very beginning, the first 5 or so minutes, you're either going to know if you're going to like the film or you're not going to like the film. It opens up, or maybe not opens up, whenever it is,
Yeah.
however many minutes in, the bedroom of a teenage girl who's writing herself into the superheroes. She's like, I want to be a team up Captain Marvel. I'm Miss Marvel. This is going to be great. And I wasn't the kind of person to like have these wallpapers up on my childhood bedroom, things in glitter. But I do have friends from my childhood that was their room. They
Right.
had they would do whatever they could to meet their idol, meet whoever they were fascinated with. They're like, I'm going to wait out in line before a concert. I'm going to scream around. I'm going to hold my sign. I'm going to want, I don't know, One Direction
Mm,
and all these other people, the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, someone to notice me and just be like, we're
right.
a team. And so that to me is kind of the lens, or at least I understood it as that's the lens they were going to be telling the story through, is this kind of naive younger child who's thrust into this world that she doesn't quite know, but she's excited about, and she has some notions and she's really wanting to do certain things. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. This seems fun. But I can
Yeah.
also see where some people are like, that's I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah. This could have been season 2 of Miss Marvel, and then just her teaming up and meeting her hero in Captain Marvel. She was the one who shined for me, was
Mhm.
Kamala Khan. Kind of getting to the plans of Darben, I was just thinking about like the way she sucked the air out of that first planet reminded me so much of Spaceballs.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
That I was just like, wait, are they doing Spaceballs right now? Did you think of Spaceballs, or is this now you're just going,
No, I haven't seen Spaceballs in forever. It is funny how you have movies these days, and it's like it's hard to do something truly unique without referencing other movies.
yeah,
The one that really stuck out to me, and I'll go through the positives, and I'll get to the point where I'm trying to make, which ties
yeah.
back to what you're doing. Welcome to having me on the show. We go all over the place. What I found really cool is when the switching back and forth first started to happen and they didn't know what was happening. They couldn't plan for it. Mishap after mishap, mistake, chaos, things are happening. And I'm like, oh, this is fun because how are they going to have to deal with it? You've got the three ladies, Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, Monica Rambeau as, did they ever decide her
She
name?
doesn't have a name yet, but I think she becomes Photon, but at the
Okay,
end.
okay, but not
Yeah.
yet. She does. That's a whole in joke of
That's a
try
whole
to come
inside
up
joke
with
of
a
the
show.
movie.
And again, it's like her so excited. She's like, "Oh, we all need names. We need a team. We got to come up with something." And it was
Yeah.
so cute to watch. But that was really cool because it's like you have people who are experienced
Mm.
with fighting with their powers, without their powers, and then you just throw a teenager who has no idea what's going on into it, and it's chaos. What I didn't necessarily like is their training for a few days. Once the training montage was kind of funny, but once they're trained and they're so in sync with each other, I'm like, you can't get that in sync with your people over such a small amount of time and
Yeah.
be so fluid in it. It really harkened back like the battle scenes where the three of them are in sync to Avengers Infinity Wars. And they're on the planet and you have Doctor Strange, you've got Peter Parker as Spider-Man, you've got Iron Man, you've got the Guardians, and they're all fighting Thanos. And it's
Yeah.
just I was going back to that and it seemed so familiar and so much where, they're surrounding one person goes in, gets thrown
Yeah.
off, another person is, and I was just like,
Like
this
they've been
maybe
fighting
could
with
have
each
been.
other forever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you could have maybe mixed it up a little bit or done something
Yeah.
different in how the fight scene was coordinated there.
Taking it back a little. We're going to be all over the place, but it's going to make sense. I promise you, people. Part of Darben saving her planet is looking for the quantum bands. So we find out, even though you didn't watch Miss Marvel,
Bangles,
but
bangles, bangles.
the Bangles, the bands got her powers from in the show, that's actually a quantum band. I don't know much about that from the comic books, but I'm sure a bunch of people were like, oh my God. So I was just like, let me just boom, pinpoint that. So comic nerds, yell at us in the comments. I'm also a comic nerd. I just don't know this part. Kamala Khan has one, and apparently they create those portals, those hexagon portals that we've seen throughout the MCU. She wants to steal resources from the planets that Carol Danvers loves to then give back to Hala. So stealing resources to save your planet, but then also assuming revenge on the Annihilator. So it's just like a 1-2, like, oh, I'm doing a good thing, but I'm also being very petty about it. And therefore I was just like, okay, I'm understanding your motivation. This is making sense to me. But when Darban finds one of the Bengals, there's supposed to be a set of two,
See,
and she doesn't know where the second one is.
that I
And that set, I'm gonna say, the scene when I was watching, she was over the top on that scene.
That's
It
exactly where I
looked
was gonna go. I did
she
not
was
like that
over,
scene where she was
yeah.
getting that person. It's at the beginning of the film. I was like,
It's at the
"Ooh, is this
beginning of the
working?"
film, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a rough ride. She was over the top. It looked like it was in a black box theater.
Yep,
Like it did not, whereas like there's some amazing set design in this movie. This is not one of them. The scene, the way it was playing out, didn't work for me, but I'm like,
agreed.
okay, this is how she's getting it. I was just like, hopefully this is the only bad scene in the movie. It wasn't, but I was just like, hopefully it's the only one.
I think the bangle things come as a pair. That's what they do. I think that was kind of cool. And I think it, as an introduction to the situation of the three of them starting to swap bodies, swap powers back and forth, like that was kind of cool. But to your point of when she's getting it, that scene, I was like, okay, it'll be over soon.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the direction or where they were going with the character, because as a concept, I like her motivations as a character. She
Yes.
is doing bad things to try to save her planet, save her people, and bring things back to life. That is cool because, as we
Yeah.
discovered with the MCU villain problem of what are their motivations, it's always flat. It's always, don't really care about the villain. And as a concept, I think it could have worked really well. Implementation wise, it didn't quite get there for me, but that first introduction of her getting the bangle is just like, oof, oof,
Right.
come on.
Right. It was like a split mind of like, oh, this is bad. And at the same time, like, I completely understand where she's coming from. It does get better from here with the heroes. On the planet that the Skrull colony ran by Emperor Droge, who was originally mentioned in Secret Invasion, they're meeting with Darben to have a peace treaty between the Skrulls and the Kree. And although this peace treaty includes relocating the Skrulls before they take the resources, I was like, this doesn't sound like a treaty to me. This sounds more colonization and displacement. And I was like, well, what kind of message or further deeper messages is this movie trying to speak with us on the villain's motivations? Once she finds out that Carol Danvers is there in that craziness of swapping bodies, swapping places, she believes that the Skrulls called on Carol Danvers, and she decides that she's just going to destroy the planet anyways and not help the Skrulls get off world first. And that is where the Spaceballs, the suction of the air out of the planet, it would have been so funny if they actually had a maid with the vacuum cleaner. They could not do that in this movie. That is strictly for Spaceballs.
See, I'll have to disagree. I think that was her plan all along. She was not going to help relocate them. She just wanted them all in one spot, distracted. She'd have her ship in place. She'd have her thing in place, and she was going to do what she planned to do. And that was that. They had no hope.
I was going out and I was like, was this her original plan, just to destroy them all, or was she actually going to go through with the treaty? I think there's a possibility that she would have gone through with the treaty if the Skrulls didn't get up in arms about being displaced, which I don't think the Skrulls would have been okay with being displaced. So I feel like it was going to end where it ended anyways. Have Kamala learning about the casualties of war in this moment. Not everyone can be saved.
There's so many things. Just throw a teenager. And here's the problem. I don't know if it was cut or something, or if it was like, you have to explain things sometimes to teenagers. Don't just be like, just get on the ship, leave the people, don't use your powers, just get on the ship. It's like, no, we're evacuating the planet. You using your power is going to draw attention. We need to evacuate you. Get on the ship. We'll save who we can, but go. They never had that conversation. They just offered a few words and ran away. And that's part of the thing throughout this movie is it's not quite given the depth of what would need to be done, or there's no way that scene wouldn't have played out any different, because you never explain something to the teenager and she's going to do what she wants to do.
The second planet, she chooses to leave. So she kind of learns the lesson of the first planet. You can't save everyone, but we need to finish this mission. So she leaves that second planet. But we'll get there. We do have a Valkyrie cameo. We find out that her and Carol are good friends. Where was this? Why is this not in a movie or a show? I want this. Thoughts on
Agreed.
them being besties and none of us knowing this until now?
See, this is where part of it is, apparently Carol Danvers hasn't been back to Earth regularly. She hasn't kept up with her relationships. Even with Fury, it's just like talking on the comms, going away, doing her own thing. So there's a depth missing there, and I want to see it explored, but I'm like, it doesn't quite make sense to me. And I understand during Endgame, you know, Captain Marvel was around a little bit and she was in communications. Maybe there was a whole thing where the two of them were going around the galaxy, but supposedly Valkyrie was, you know, in charge of the Asgardians and their refugee area on Earth. So there's a lot of question marks, and I really wish there was
Yeah.
something leading up to that point.
To speak on that, yeah, they're besties. But what we know is Valkyrie's been on Earth this whole time, yeah, with the Asgardian refugees. And so was she coming back to Earth regularly then to hang out with Valkyrie? Why didn't you go see Monica? There's questions here. There's questions. Hopefully, they'll be answered in the future. The next planet we go to, and it's probably my favorite planet, is Aladna. Aladna is a planet where everyone speaks in song. And you get a lot of song and dance on this planet. And I loved that in every single scene, Kamala Khan is dancing her life away. Like,
Yes, yes, I loved it.
it was so good. Monica eventually danced, and at the end, when those two are like dancing a little bit, watching Carol Danvers with her husband, we find out Carol Danvers has a husband. It's a marriage of convenience.
Not just any husband. She is a princess, officially
Right?
a princess of a planet.
Princess Marvel there. The set design of Aladna was amazing. The castle is actually in the shape of an organ.
Oh, I did not notice that.
And so, like, there's just these little music flares and little musical things all over that planet. We get new battle outfits for Kamala Khan, Carol Danvers, and Monica Rambeau. And ultimately, things don't go too well on that planet. And Kamala pushes the button for them to jump through the portals, which Carol's not too happy about.
A little bit of a hot take that might rile some people up. This set design, this culture, this scene of where we get introduced to the people of this planet is, I think, what is missing from the MCU. When the MCU came out, it's like, this is comic books. This is ridiculous things. Who has a planet of people who can only communicate via song? It's crazy. But, you know, that is what comics
and a prince who's bilingual.
When you have a movie out of comic book runs, it's fantastical, it's different, things that could never happen in real life, things you could never imagine. And I think people have started to take these movies and these shows so seriously, looking at every little in-depth that they forget to just sit and enjoy and be not impressed, because there were things I liked about this film, there's things I wasn't, but like, just enjoy the fact that people are willing to go there and make these projects and throw creativity in there. And not everything has to go into such detail to be comic book ready or anything like that, but just enjoy that we're seeing these crazy things on the screen.
This was definitely super fun. I spoke there on the Prince is bilingual, where he can actually speak regularly. That's when you speak regularly to these people, not in song, they do not understand you, although their song is in English. So
yeah,
it's hilarious.
And magical princess moment where her dress or her outfit changes into this dress and they're dancing, and it was fun. And to your point about Kamala getting into it and dancing, and again, it's from her lens. She's a teenager thrust out of her comfort zone, and she's just looking around with her eyes wide open, taking everything in and enjoying the moment. And you can see how Monica is not quite there yet. And she's like, we're supposed to be doing things. It's important. We got to get back home. We got to take care of everything that's happening. Let's move on with it. But Kamala, on the other hand, is just, you know, new, exciting breath of fresh air. I loved it.
The funny thing, too, is when Kamala goes, why aren't you dancing? And Carol Danvers goes, I am dancing.
Yeah. Or what was the comment where it's like, although somebody looks a little frowny or something like that. And it's like, just, you are surrounded by so much color and singing and dancing and culture. And you're just like, so stoic. Both of the older heroes. I'm just like,
Yeah.
come on, come on,
This
lighten
was
up.
truly because when we saw the trailer, I was like, oh, are we gonna have a Bollywood moment? And even though this was not like Bollywood song and dance, I feel like it was definitely
Mhm.
influenced by Bollywood.
Again, I'll give a little bit of a hot take. You got to sprinkle this in here. When I was talking about earlier, where we have an introduction to Kamala Khan and her as a teenager and in her bedroom and all of that, I'm not going to say they're comparable because there's definitely a higher quality in this other movie. But I think the intent or the starting point is the same, and people are either going to be on board from the beginning or they're going to be off board. So when you have the introduction to Miles Morales and Into the Spider-Verse, he
Mm.
is a young, half black, half Latino teenager. He's got his art, he's got his drawings, he loves Peter Parker, he's into Spider-Man, he's into all this sort of stuff. And you either get on board of I'm going on this journey from this young kid and what he's going to be going through and how he gets introduced into this universe, or it's not for you. And
Right.
I think very similarly, again, not implementation wise, didn't
Right.
doesn't hit the mark as Into the Spider-Verse stuff,
Right.
but it's a similar, here's a young girl, here's her culture, here's her family, giving that in-depth look of what her life was like and how it's going to be changed throughout the movie. And to me, I was just on board. I'm like, think about it from that way and be like, I'll see where this
Mm.
goes and it'll be fun.
The next place Starbend is set on stealing the energy of the sun from is our solar system, Earth. Gets some births of Flerkens on Saber, and for the easiest transport, the Flerkens swallow all the employees of Saber to take back to Earth, set to Barbara Streisand's version of Memory from Cats. This was a definitely laugh out loud moment for me. I know that you love cats. You're a cat person. I don't know where.
I was prepared for this thing today. We got some cats in space. That part was hilarious, ridiculous.
Right.
And you are just in a comic book movie. Go with the flow. Think about a little bit of the reality where things don't quite make sense. Okay, you have Nick Fury. He's been in
Right.
charge of Shield for how long now?
Right.
A lot of years. He's been through some shit. You tell me that at first I thought it was a brain, but apparently they're eggs.
Yeah.
An egg gets discovered on your ship, and you're like, this is a little strange. Then you have 28 of them appear. You're like, what the heck is going on? Then you have something else, spaceships, whatever. Nobody knows what's going on, and they have to evacuate. You're telling me you're not in charge of however many souls are on your spaceship. You've never run drills of how to evacuate. You're in freaking space. Any little bit of air getting out,
Right.
Nick Fury, you are supposed to be in charge. You have to be smart in some way. So the fact that he was pretty lackadaisical
Yeah.
in quite a few ways, I'm just like, oh, come on, I get it. He's supposed to be a light touch character, add some humor, add some depth in the Shield history, but he's supposed to be competent. He's
Mm.
supposed to be competent in some way, shape, or form. So that was something where I didn't quite appreciate everything they did with his character. He should be more than just some humorous bits.
And that's why I feel that this was probably shot before Secret Invasion, because what he goes through in Secret Invasion, he should not be this lighthearted in this movie. And this is after that show, I'm guessing, in the grand scheme of things. So the fact that he is that lackadaisical, the fact that he's just like, oh, we'll figure it out, like, or like making a joke or quip here and there. It's not quite the Nick Fury that he has become.
Implementation wise, they could have done this in a slightly different way that would have had much more of an impact. And even to me, I love cats. I love this scene. It was hilarious. But we're too spot on the nose, too leaning into it in some points because they're like, oh, herding literal cats and having cat toys going around to get them in there. And you're like, it could have been a quick discussion of this is what we're going to do, and then having people in the background with no explanation getting eaten by the Flurkins. Just like,
Yeah.
what?
And then over the
What?
PA, "Don't run, allow them to swallow you," and they're running like crazy
Exactly.
in major fear, and it's just
Yeah.
like
Like, because that's where it's like,
it
show,
made it
don't
funny, it made it
tell.
so
It
funny.
made it funny, and it was good scenes, but I think they could have pulled it.
Yeah.
Even for me, it was a little bit too much at some points where it's like, "Okay, we get it.
Yeah,
We got
yeah.
it. We had some laughs, like, okay, you can move on or, like, do something in the background like we said."
If you're watching it at home by yourself, it will seem very over the top, but when you're in the theater and everyone around you is laughing out loud and you're laughing out loud, it just makes the scene, like, so much better because 'cause you're having that communal experience.
There's a few things. Goose is by himself on this spaceship. How
Right.
do Flurkins reproduce? One cat-like being creates 28 eggs for his species. Now there was a comment, "Oh, he seems to be eating a lot," or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
so a Flurkin can just eat everything in the spaceship and magically reproduce itself to 28 little kittens that are absolutely adorable, not gonna lie. But I want to know if that's explained somewhere because, to my knowledge, there was only one on the spaceship. How do they reproduce? I'm
Right.
curious. Let us know in the comments, please.
The final fight of the Marvels versus Dar-Ben, I still don't know exactly how I feel about this ending. The fighting was cool. Them getting Dar-Ben down and Carol promising to I'll use my power after Monica was just like, you could use your power to reignite the sun. And like one of those, oh, you trust the villain when they like they're doing a face turn. JK, no, they're gonna steal that band. And then she kind of just like floats into space, creating that rift in space, but then also it destroys her completely. And where it's just like she blows up from having both of the bangles. Monica sacrifices herself, which I'm cool with Monica sacrificing herself to close the rift in space. I even thought like the moment of them powering up Monica was cool. You have Kamala saying Bismillah too, as like she's giving. So like you're getting Kamala's culture in what is going on in that scene, and that part was cool. But just how the villain goes down, I I don't I don't think
So
I enjoyed that.
I don't quite there's a few things about these bangles that I don't understand. And maybe it's from the TV show and I missed it, or maybe again it's in the comics, they didn't explain it. So why is Kamala able with one band to use it whenever she wants and not get injured or having real side effects? Because throughout the movie you see whenever Darvin uses it, there are effects. There are negative effects that if she uses it too much is going to end her life. And you see with
Kamala's a mutant, which we find
okay,
out in the show. Yeah, we
okay, gotcha.
the sting in the last episode at the very end. You get the da 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 da. Oh, she's a mutant.
Somehow that lets her use this energy
I guess
without
so.
any negative effects whatsoever.
Right.
Yep.
You just
Okay.
yeah, exactly, because you see Dar-Ben uses both of these bangles and it completely destroys her. And then Kamala immediately later uses the same two bangles and is
Yep.
perfectly fine. And I was like, is this because of a mutation? Is it because she's chosen? Is it because she said Bismillah and now she's fine? I was just like, this fight, this ending to Dar-Ben that leads into Monica then sacrificing herself. I don't know how to feel about this.
When her mom passed away, she did
Yeah.
reintegrate herself into Shield or whatever it's called now. And she has coworkers, but it's like her world was ripped apart and
Yeah.
she doesn't have anyone. So like a self-sacrificing aspect to it, not that surprising.
Right.
Also not that surprising is Captain Marvel trying to go after her and just missing her, and ending up all in space on her own, being like, what do I do? There
Yeah.
goes person I was trying to protect, and now she is gone, and I don't know where she is. A little predictable as well.
Mhm.
And if it had ended there, I think it would have not been as satisfying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, not even with how everything wrapped up, I'm like, mm, it's kind
Yeah.
of that same problem of third act of MCU and other
Right.
superhero films. How do you end the fight scenes? And it is a little bit of a redemption arc for Captain Marvel because she does take the advice of Monica and she goes back and she uses her energy to make the sun on the planet reinvigorate and hopefully bring back life to this planet that she basically caused a civil war and destruction, and caused all these people harm. So in a
Mhm.
way, she is completing the mission that the villain of the film was trying to
Yeah.
complete, and she does wrestle a little bit of like, these are my actions, this is what it's caused, how can I change the outcome? But again, we don't really see her struggle with that throughout the movie,
Yeah.
so it doesn't have that depth that it could have had if they
Mhm.
had done some things in a different way.
One thing too that I noticed immediately, Monica Rambeau, when she went to go fix the rift, flew faster than Captain Marvel when Captain Marvel was trying to go save her. And then thinking now, I was just like, wait, yeah. And then at the beginning of the movie, when she somehow makes it from Earth to that first planet real quick.
Yeah, there's some oddities in where people are located on Earth, in the galaxy, on
Yeah,
planets, and how long it takes to go back and forth, and why do you need a spaceship anyways if you could just grab your friend and fly? Like,
yeah.
there are many questions
Have what I like to call, we have a pre post credit scene or pre credit scene and then a mid credit scene. In that pre credit scene, we have Kamala, very Nick Fury like, recruiting Kate Bishop. I think she almost used almost exactly the same words that Nick Fury used with Iron Man in the first movie to create the Young Avengers.
So I'm gonna say something here is she did not pull a Nick Fury. I would say she was acting as a dramatic teenage girl. And what does that say about how Nick Fury behaves?
Thinking about, I've been reading up on you. Where'd you find that? Oh, in my couch. And that reminded me too of earlier, was just like, if this is top secret, why is it clear? Like, and I was like, that's a great point, Kamala. Um, but so I feel like we're either gonna get a show or a movie with the Young Avengers. We find out in the mid-credit scene that rift in space, where like in the Spider-Man movie, that rift was to the Sony Spider-Verse. This rift was to the Fox Marvel X-Men universe. We get these,
Maybe.
maybe,
It's to a universe where mutants exist.
if we're going off the music cues, and it's the same actor as the original one, not the when they had the younger actors come and play. I'm Nicholas Holt. There we go. So it's not the
Yes.
Nicholas Holt one. Um, so maybe the Days of Future Past, this is like a continuation of that. I don't know.
And I do not know what her mother, because it's not
Yeah.
really her mother, what her place is in the Marvel universe, but it may not be the one that we are familiar with. We so far have an introduction to just two. Well, and they
Yeah.
mentioned Charles, so
Yeah. Yeah.
technically three, but it may not be
Yeah.
that same universe.
We it's I think it's the Fox X-Men universe. We will find out. It has Beast, the same actor that played Beast. I'm forgetting his last name. It is not Hank Pym, it's Hank something. And they're checking her vitals, and he says that he's going to report back to Professor X. So Professor X is alive. So it's
Hmm.
not the a Beast and a Professor X from the Doctor Strange movie, because we know he's dead unless he was brought back to life. Who knows? That can happen in comic books, right?
Wink
Uh,
McCoy. There we go.
yeah. We also have yeah, Maria Rambeau. We get a little flashback of Carol saying, like, it should have been you. You should have been the one that got there first.
Hmm.
And we know that in the Doctor Strange movie, she becomes Captain Marvel. So I feel like that's another iteration of she was the one who got there first. Therefore, she doesn't have a kid. She does not know that that's her daughter there.
It leaves us in an interesting spot because even though I haven't seen all of the TV shows, I haven't seen all of the
Mm,
movies, I now am way more invested in Monica Rambeau, where she ends up. She had such an emotional
yeah.
roller coaster of she wakes up, she sees who she thinks is her mother. This person ends up not knowing her at all. And it's like you're in another universe. How do you get home? Do you want to go home? Do you integrate yourself? What have you? So I'm invested in that story. And I'm also very invested in wanting to see more of the Kamala Khan character. I'm less interested in Captain Marvel. Like, is this
Yeah.
the end of her run? I mean, and I guess this is also the issue they had with her as a character once they brought her into the MCU is she's so powerful that once you bring her onto the chessboard, she's gonna take out everything. So how do
Hmm.
you have her be in the universe helping out but not,
Yeah.
doing everything?
Not being super OP.
Yeah, and so I don't know. She may pop up once in a while, but I think I am much less invested in seeing where she grows, what she ends up doing, than where I am seeing Monica and Kamala Khan.
Just focusing on the Marvels, Kamala, Carol, Monica.
Hmm.
Thoughts on where they start to where they end in this movie?
No, I think it was just really fun to see them on screen together and doing different things. At the beginning, you've got a little bit of the fangirling thing, and you've
Hmm.
got the standoffish one of like, I haven't seen my aunt in so many years. My mom died, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they gave enough time to like get over those things. Like they
Yeah, I
just
agree.
started to gel too much as a team and it was kind of cool. Again, the training montage, that was pretty funny. And the first
Mm.
fights where they had no idea what they were doing, that was really funny as well. That transition of where they started to a clean, well-oiled fighting trio, it didn't quite bring me along because I'm like, there's no way this is possible. But
Yeah.
again, it's a comic book movie. Just go with the flow, enjoy it. But when the three of them are on screen together, I really liked it.
I enjoyed their bonding moments. I wish, like you, that we got a little bit more of that time in between. Or maybe they're not completely perfect when they fight, even at the end.
Hmm.
That could have been something that they struggled more with in this movie. But Kamala fangirling over Carol. I enjoyed the trying to figure out a nickname for Monica,
Yep.
and Monica's like is not having it. She's like, "I'm Captain Monica Rambeau. Why do
I
I
put
need
a
a name?"
lot of work into
Yeah,
getting my rank, getting my
yeah,
professionalism, and everything.
yeah. And it's funny that even one of them they said Vision, and like Carol's like, Vision. Oh wait.
Yeah, no, no, Vision's already taken in this
Vision
universe.
is
Sorry.
already taken. The montage of them figuring stuff out was fun. Was it a little too quick? Yeah. But if you take the individual scenes, like just as individual scenes and not as a collective, then they're really fun character beats between the three of them. When you do mush it all together, it's like, okay, was this too quick? Is this too fast paced?
Put a cherry on the top for the training montage is I appreciated the fact that in all other movies, even where it's a female led one, you think G.I. Joe or G.I. Jane, you think all these other ones, it's like, let's do the manly man training. Let's do the
Hmm.
pull-ups. Let's do the push-ups. Let's do like some fighting. And it's like they're doing jump rope. They're
Right.
throwing popcorn at each other. Again, if you think about yourself as the lens of this is being told through a teenage girl who's exploring this universe, this world for the first time, like it is that impression. And I enjoyed that the
Hmm.
training montage was silly, was youthful, was a little ridiculous,
Yeah.
and it had me smiling a lot. And especially like we were doing the double dutch thing. It's like, okay, come
Yeah.
in, come in. I'm like, I would do that. Like I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like jump in, jump out. I no
Yeah.
idea how to
I,
actually do that in real life. I laughed so hard.
your thoughts on Darben beginning to her end arc?
I mean, again, as a concept, as an intent, I think it had the potential for depth of a villain in the MCU that we haven't seen in a while, but they didn't quite get it far enough. And I don't know if it was how she was acting it, how she was being directed. It seemed too over the top in certain
Hmm.
ways. And actually, it was weird because I didn't quite get it at the beginning. I thought they were saying our son will die. I thought they were talking about like they were married and had a kid and the kid had a medical issue. I didn't realize they were talking about the actual son for their planet that was dying and then therefore making it hard to breathe. And when you think about again the layers deep of climate change, what scientists think, when the
Hmm.
sun and the heat starts to go down, that affects other things and
Yeah.
you can't have plants grow anymore, which then causes different
Mm.
impacts to the water and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely depth and thought within the movie that you can pick apart and go on that journey. I just don't think they made decisions to go in depth to
Mhm.
certain things that they could have to make it a better film.
If you haven't seen Secret Invasion, it's I don't think it's too weird.
It's
And
still a
so
little weird, but not that bad.
because you haven't seen Secret Invasion, I really want to know like how weird was it Nick's arc in this movie, because it was very weird for me as what happened in the show.
This is where, again, maybe people take this too seriously or an expectation of a tied universe comes into play. And I try to take these films individually.
Mm.
So the tone of this film is, I would say, probably very different than most of the other movies that have come out, even most of the TV shows. You think about Winter Soldier or Endgame, all very serious. Oh, I got cat fur. Maybe there's a flurkin hiding around. Very serious. And while there were serious concepts in this film, and they did make it dark, the tone I got from it from the very beginning was, lighthearted, fun, exuberant, silly, because it's being told from
Mhm.
the lens of Kamala Khan. So in that case, while I don't think Nick Fury is the most competent, I guess, agent director of this, because he's the, whatever,
Yeah.
the way he handles the evacuation. And he is fumbling a bit where he's like, oh,
Mm.
you haven't seen your Aunt Carol in a while. Like, let's try to have you guys meet up. Let me mend this bridges. And
That
you're like,
three-way call that he did, that I was like, that is very girl like of him.
exactly,
Like, when your two best friends are fighting and you put it on a three-way to try to get them to stop fighting and
exactly.
talk to each other.
So it doesn't fit into other things Nick Fury might have made an appearance in this universe. But for this movie, it mostly made sense if you
Yeah.
look at it within those boundaries.
I never thought I was gonna hear Nick Fury say black girl magic, but we have that in this movie. I need you to see Miss Marvel just because of this family, the Khan family,
Oh,
Muniba,
they
Yusuf,
are,
and Amir. I love them so much. Every time they were on screen, it made me happy. They're so funny and charming. I love the family. I want more of them in the MCU.
yes.
I and like I think anyone who's like a child or a grandchild of immigrants recognizes these characters in their own families.
Hmm.
So thoughts on the Khan family,
They're
Muniba,
great.
Yusuf, Amir.
It's funny. It was just so much of, when they were switching and they're like, "Where have you been? Look at our couch." And there's like these crazy people, aliens invading their house,
Mhm.
fighting. Like it was so much fun to be introduced to them. Again, not having seen the show, this was my first introduction. I got a very good taste of like who they are, what the
Mhm.
family dynamics were, how it was just a lot of fun. And then eh, the different go backs, they when they're moving into the house at the end, and she's like, "Oh, there's this platter. It's very fancy. We're keeping." And you realize it's probably a wedding gift to Captain
Yeah.
Marvel when she married the prince, because like I believe it was a portrait of the two of them
Yeah.
on that thing. So now the house that I guess Captain Marvel's moving into it, Carol
Yeah.
Danvers is moving in. They were just helping her move.
Yeah, that was unclear. I was like, are they moving to that house, the Khan family, or are they helping Carol move?
Yeah, I think it's Carol moving there,
Yeah.
but does that mean she's gonna be staying on Earth more? Like, is she,
Yeah.
because she realized her being a superhero, taking care of problems caused so much damage to other cultures, other people, is she gonna, like, tone it down and just try to stay on Earth and figure out how to get Monica back? Actually, there was another weird thing. So her powers kept getting absorbed by the Bengals during the fights with Darvin. And
Mhm.
I was like, I know she has a lot of powers, but it can't be infinite, right? Like at one
Yeah.
point, I thought maybe all of her powers had been like sucked up and done there, and like she sort of turned human for a little bit without
Mhm.
her powers at one point during a fight. But I guess she just regenerates all that energy so quickly.
Yeah.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah, I hope we get more answers to that. Small little moments of this family. Yusuf explaining retirement plans
Yes, yes.
to the a member of Saber, and then asking how old he was, and he was like 300 and something, and Amir going, "Oh, you guys are the same age," like basically making fun of his father there.
So are those people?
I think he
Is
was
that
an
a Kree
Asgardian.
in disguise, or was he an Asgardian? Because like, are
I
the
think he was an Asgardian. I forget exactly what he said, but one of like the phrases he said when he's talking about death sounded very similar to the way the Asgardians and
gotcha?
like Norse mythology speaks about death when they're helping. I'm assuming Carol move into the Rambo house. They're not moving in.
That would be fun.
His that would be fun. Muniba's talking and Amir just tries to turn her
Oh,
his
yeah,
mother
that
off
was so fun. I laughed so hard.
with the
And
remote.
it was funny. Like my theater showing was pretty empty. It was a Sunday evening,
Mhm.
but the row behind me had like 12 members of a family or close-knit friends, all in younger to I assume some of the mothers went there or whatever.
Mhm.
But they seemed to enjoy the film. It was a lot of young people of the culture, and they were laughing at those moments too. So it was
Yeah.
fun to be in the theater and see those moments and enjoy it with other people.
And then the other moment that I think of is Muniba speaking in Urdu, basically like "I will kill her." Like
Yes,
goes,
yes.
you could tell her goes, "What'd she say? You don't want to
Yeah,
know."
no, it was pretty funny. It was like a protective mama bear there.
Mhm.
Like you will take care of her, or I will end you.
Right,
Yeah.
and you know what? I think Carol, as infinite power that she seems to have, I think Muniba would take her out.
Yes, most
Um,
definitely.
any final thoughts, Cheryl?
I apparently read your mind earlier and like paraphrased your notes. So I have one prediction for the future phases, probably not the immediate phase, but like a phase way off into the distance for the
Mhm.
MCU. I want to know, is there anything you can think of that may come out of my mouth in here? Or we'll see.
Mm, mm.
What do you think my key takeaway for the future of the MCU is from this movie?
Have more fun.
Okay, well, that's a serious one. Yes, yes, definitely. Like, just take these movies in the moment, set aside disbelief, set aside critical thought, and just go along for the ride and see where it takes you. I'm not gonna say every movie is great. Like Thor: Love and Thunder, I could not. There were so many things at the beginning that took me out of it that I was like,
Yeah,
no,
same.
just no. And honestly, it started in the battle scene with the Guardians with Thor, and I'm just like, this is not how these characters behave. These are not the characters we knew and loved. So like, I'm not saying every film was going to be great, but enjoy it, relax, take it as it comes, and go along for the ride. That's the serious one. Any unserious one that you probably have at least some idea of where I'm going to go.
More Flurkins?
Yes, so Flurkins are okay. Nick Fury ends up on the planet, which previously only had one Flurkin on it.
Mm-hmm.
We now have 28 or however many, I think it's 28, adorable little tiny Flurkins with Goose. But if you go back to the original Captain Marvel film and they realize that a Flurkin is on the ship, everyone is terrified shitless, right? So Flurkins are some crazy powerful things. So what is the reproductive cycle of Flurkins? And will it be phases down for the MCU? We will be in a Planet of the Apes situation.
I was just thinking, are you going Planet of the Apes with
Flurkins
this?
are taking over the planet because they're so powerful. Everyone's terrified of them. And you had one good one. You had one good one with Goose and great relationship, but not everyone's going to be Goose. And over time, they're not going to bond with Nick Fury. Who knows what's going to happen? And that's my prediction. We're going to end up in a Planet of the Apes situation, phase, I don't know, 7 of the MCU. And humans are going to be running from terror of the Flurkins who are in control of the world, which a planet run by cat-like creatures, would be terrifying, but also adorable and also like chaotic. It would be
Kevin Feige, hire her.
Exactly. Need new ideas. You know where to come. Right here. Right here.
And one thing that I do share with Brie Larson is she's allergic to cats. So when you have Goose flying on her shoulder, that was CGI because she could not have the cat near her face. I was like, I feel that. We have a little Flurkin of her own joining us.
Yes, the newest Flurkin.
She said, nope. This movie was fun. I think this movie has some issues. You have a fun time. You have some laughs. You're going to enjoy this movie. I think it's one of those movies that you can't expect too much from it. Because if you go in expecting too much, you're going to be very disappointed with it. There's stuff that doesn't make sense. There's stuff with the villain that I didn't like her acting choices, either her choices or the direction she got. I don't know who's at fault. Maybe both of them are at the fault. At the end of the day, Kamala Khan, her family, her relationships with everyone else in this movie, like, is the highlight for me. I would, I guess, recommend it at the end of the day because it's fun. Maybe if you want to wait to watch it on Disney Plus, that's understandable. But there's moments in this movie that I legitimately was laughing out loud. Even if there's moments in this movie that I'm like, that makes zero sense. That's really, really bad. So you get a little bit of both while watching this film.
Yeah, I think there were 3 times that I was laughing. I laughed a little bit harder. I could see like other people in the theater were not laughing as much as I was, but I was definitely laughing out loud at least 3 times, I remember.
One person that was just like having the time of her life in the theater. She was laughing the whole time, and her giggle was a little infectious. So that probably even made it better for me.
And I would say if you're on the fence on seeing the film or not, if you have AMC A-list or something where it's not necessarily extra to go see it, if the introduction with Kamala Khan and her bedroom and okay, now we have a cat. Now she chooses to come up here. But if you give it the first 5-10 minutes, if you're not on board and you're not willing to go on that ride, you'll know pretty quickly whether you'll like the film or not. But just give it a shot, and then I guess if you're not into it, find something else to do with your time. But give it a shot.
Cheryl, do you have any other positives or negatives for this movie?
Yeah, no, I think one area we didn't get to go into is I love visual effects. And I did like a lot of them in this film. Like there were some gorgeous shots of
Mm.
spaceships or the cinematography of the different planets, the wide shots, even being in space. Some of that was really, really well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. But there were also some scenes that have the traditional Marvel issue of special effects, and it took me out. The one in specifically is when Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan are like falling through the air on planet Earth, and the special effects of how they were falling and their face and the background.
Mm.
I was just like, cringed a bit. But at the same time, from what I've heard on the industry side of things, like it's very difficult, very time consuming, very effort consuming for the visual effects artists who work on these kinds of projects. And so I wouldn't necessarily put it on them. The
Mm.
way these films are made and the way they're working towards specific time spots in the year for releases, they are put in a really tough
Yeah.
situation. And I have heard so many news stories. There's also Reddit threads of what it's like actually working for these companies, and people will try to avoid working on these TV shows, on these movies, just because of how difficult it is, where they're like, we'll film it, we'll fix it in post later, we'll do
Mhm.
something else, or something's not quite working, let's change one thing. And then that has a rolling impact that these effects artists just have to work so hard to get back on track. And so I never hold it against them for these films, because I feel like they're not given the time to do
No,
to
they're
the
not.
best of their ability, which also
Especially with the oversaturation of the shows and movies now that we're getting way more of them than we did previously. They don't have as much time to work on them.
And they're made to fit for other projects. So if they're like, "Hey, we built out our TV show, we built out our movie," and then they're like, "You got to fit something else in. We got to do some pickups for this other thing that's going to have an
Mhm.
impact, or you need to
Yeah.
change it because this thing we haven't told you about, the script that you'll never see, you need to do something," and it causes changes late in the game. And I think, if I'm correct, there is they are now being considered a part of, is it IATSE or one of the
The
labor unions?
Yeah, people that work on the special effects stuff, not the actual visual effects behind the scenes of when they get the footage, but the people that are putting the dots and putting the suits on them and doing the stuff to make it good for visual effects that are actually working on that day with those actors is joining one of the unions.
And thankfully, the strikes are over. They've
Mhm.
come to an agreement that will hopefully hold up for years to come and make things better. But I know also people are going to focus on the box office for this movie, and I think there's two big components of this. Is this movie has a very specific lens to it. I enjoyed it. Soul enjoyed
Mm.
it. I'm sure a lot of other people will enjoy it, and they're going to hear some of the criticism that's coming out. Some of it is rightful criticism, some of
Yeah.
it is very much not. The other thing people have not been talking about, which I feel is terrible, is the promotion. I forgot
Yeah.
that this movie was coming out this weekend until you pinged me about it, Soul. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that is this weekend, because they didn't have the regular promotion around this. They
Mhm.
could have gotten so much groundswell support if they had done certain test screenings, if they had put certain people on the press circuit, because you think about how Barbie, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, not that this movie would have done as well as those ones or what have you, but there was definitely opportunities for promoting this film to remind people of what they love about Kamala Khan, how different it is, how it could have been, and they weren't given that opportunity. So I really hope that word of mouth spreads on this film, and that
Yeah.
people who might be interested in seeing this type of movie will go out and see it in theaters.
Yeah. I have a feeling that this movie could be similar to what Elemental did. Is when that movie first came out, it didn't do so well in the box office, and everyone was writing articles upon articles about how it was a box office failures. But it stuck around. At the beginning, there were so many articles written about how Elemental wasn't doing well. And that movie I also enjoyed. It had its flaws, but then it also had its really good parts to it as well. And so I have a feeling that maybe the Marvels will be somewhat similar. If you keep it in theaters long enough, it may make its money back. The thing though is with this movie, unlike with Elemental, which I think was like
Yeah.
$100 million, this is like 200 plus. Maybe after you add some of the promotion, it can get up to $300 million, and they're just spending so much money on these MCU movies that I don't think it's going to make its money back.
And unfortunately, it's all the perception or the first words that come out. And,
Mm,
there have been people talking about this film, writing about it. If word can get out from the people who did enjoy it and that kind of audience, I think it could stick around. Now there's
yeah.
going to be competition. Thanksgiving weekend is always the family friendly options. You've got Willy Wonka coming out. You've got Wish, I think I saw
Mhm.
a trailer for in there. So there's definitely some movies that could draw, a younger audience, a family friendly audience. Families can go to this, younger audience members can go to this and enjoy it. Barbie.
Yeah.
I had friends who rarely go to the theaters, went multiple times with their kids. I took my aunt and uncle to it. They never go to the theaters. They enjoyed it. So there is an audience outside of the mainstream, what has always been successful in the experimentation of making movies from a different lens. I hope production companies, development companies, they don't shy away from it just because there are certain factors that may have impacted this film and other
Mhm.
films from being as successful as they could have been.
Between how fun this movie was, even if there's parts that I didn't like about it, and then season 2 of Loki, so far I'm feeling better about where the MCU is going than where I was before the season 2 of Loki.
Yeah.
Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.